it used to be in the day you get a paper ticket. Your paper ticket now is all online, which frankly
Right.
probably means that there's way more fine print that can be squeezed into a web page than there could be on the back of a ticket. But the fine print is important because a ticket is a license. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Beneath the Law. Gavin, Tighe here. Stephen Thiele, we've made it.
I'm here too. Yes, we had some technical difficulties here, but we're all set now.
Beautiful sunny afternoon, August in Ontario, Canada.
Still hot. All my strawberries have died. All my plants, the heat just scorched them.
Yeah, well, you're lucky they're not on fire like everywhere else seems to be.
That's true.
So, speaking of on fire, there was I have to say, just to back this up, I mean, if there's one, there's very few moments. Well, maybe that's not true anymore, but maybe there are more than there used to be. But, there are sort of unifying moments in society where everybody remembers, a certain event. Everyone remembers, and there are often they're tragic. And this one was tragic, I suppose, for some people.
Well, he played with fire, or they played with fire, and they got burned.
But I mean, you think of where were you when 9/11? Where were you when Kennedy?
O.J. Simpson was driving down the highway.
Everybody remembers these events, and another unifying event that you could go, I think, anywhere on the face of the planet, and ask people, "Hey, do you see that video from the Coldplay concert?" And it is like, despite the fact that, planet Earth is so fractious at the moment, we have all these disputes. There's one unifying fact. Everybody has seen the video from the Coldplay concert. And how, when you think about that, and so many people have talked about it, it's sort of, it does show you, to my mind, a little bit too, though, that it was everywhere for, probably a 72-hour period, but sort of faded off again into the distance. But wow, what
I don't know, this whole thing has a life of its own. It's been,
talk about going out in a blaze of glory, of ignominy, and being on fire. That was not the way you want to get famous.
Well, that's what happens when when you're married to other people and you got your side hustle going, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's so many angles to this, and there was lots of discussion about it, but it's one of these moments of let's sort of looking at an event that everyone knows about, everyone witnessed repeatedly, and I think that I will say this, and that I do think that it reveals kind of a bit of what I think is the darker side of human nature, about how people seem to take a kind of perverse pleasure in other people's misery. And to some extent, I think that what was clearly a very private issue became a very public problem. And not just, frankly, and the other thing I think about is not just a problem for the two involved in the dalliance that was recorded on the Kiss cam, but I mean, there's all sorts of collateral victims to this. I mean, I think of the families of these people. I mean, what a horrible thing to happen to them.
Yeah, no, and not only are there collateral victims, but there are a lot of collateral issues that this whole thing raises. From the breach of privacy that everybody's talking about in terms of their privacy, to whether there was a defamation. This digs right into some fundamental employment law issues.
Well, yeah, there's a ton of legal questions.
Yeah,
that come out of this incident. That is first of all, I mean, it's funny because I think that we've been this. I don't know how many episodes of our podcast we've done, but I don't think we've ever done a podcast where we didn't start out with kind of the factual matrix. And this is the first. You don't have to, because everybody knows the factual matrix. But if for those who just got rescued from a desert island without internet, um, there was a Coldplay concert in Boston, and everyone knows this. This at every event ever. You go to a hockey game, you go to a base, whatever. There's always the the show within the show is the jumbotron or whatever you might call it, where they're panning around the audience and they're getting video of people in the audience, and like people get all excited when they're on the jumbotron and start cheering, and they're
Well, they want to
they
be
want
on the
their at their best.
jumbotron.
I got to tell you, I
Right?
do not get that part. I don't know why. Do I like? I kind of share a bit of the sentiment of our protagonists in this episode, because I really do. I don't know the chair too. I don't really want to be on the camera, but
I think you've been on the camera though.
yeah,
I think I've seen you on the
you made
jumbotron.
sure that you rubbed that in. Thanks, really appreciate that. And actually, I used to love doing this podcast because we didn't do video. But anyways, now that we've got, because as I've been fond of saying, I have a face for radio. So, anyways, the podcast the podcast surrounds that episode where they were panning around the Coldplay concert, and of course they caught the two paramours in, I wouldn't say flagrante delicto, to keep my Latin and French going, but in a warm embrace, in a soft and cuddly moment. I'm not sure which song they were dancing to, but anyways, and they just scurried like cockroaches in a tenement when you turn on the lights. It was pretty, and then Chris Martin, who's the singer of Coldplay, you got to give him credit. Pretty quick. Either they're having an affair or they're just shy. Okay, pretty good. Like, and so many issues rise out of that. Now, the outcome of this was that two people who nobody had ever heard of before all of a sudden became international superstars for all the wrong reasons. And their lives, I think, I'd love to do a Where Are They Today, probably in a family court somewhere. But their lives came to a
Screeching halt.
Well, talk about falling from cloud 9, as Katy Perry would say. But they crashed Earth pretty quick, and from what looked to be a pretty comfortable existence.
I mean, the one was the CEO of a tech company, and the other one was a high-level, I guess, executive, so certainly a senior management person within that company. So, I think these guys have hit the ground pretty hard because of a 20-second kiss cam moment?
Yeah, I mean, that was the great reveal. I mean, I do think that it was interesting that in terms of the fall, and we'll talk about a few of the legal issues that come out of this. And people had asked, well, are they allowed to do that? Can they put people on? And as you said, lots of people are clamoring to get on those videos at all sorts of events for reasons that I said escape me. But the reality of that is, there are a whole series of legal issues that come out of that, and a whole series of torts related to privacy interests and reasonable expectations of privacy. There are also arguably, defamation issues in respect of what Chris Martin said immediately. I think there are probably some serious defamation issues about what the other 1.5 million people that tweeted or commented about it online. Not that I think that either of these people are going to do anything about it, but there's all sorts of issues that come out of that. There are issues in relation to the employment of these individuals, because apparently they were both dismissed. And I have to say, and I'll put a pause on that. And we'll come back to it because I think it's probably the most fertile legal ground to talk about the situation. But I think to my mind, there are some concerns that I have with regards to that, and that relates to the fact that they were in a box and they weren't the only people from the company there. There was another employee who was at least one other employee in the box with them.
I think the whole thing is weird in itself. I mean, if look, I think it's been verified that the pair was having an intimate relationship. That's not
Question is, did the company know about
that's
it?
not a secret now. But you want to keep if you want to keep an affair secret, why are you going to a public event and doing the back hug cuddle
Wow,
sort
it
of
was the way they
thing
reacted.
in front of other
It was the
people?
reaction. It's never the sin. It's always the cover up. That's what So it's always the reaction on that's really where the guilt is often shown. So they could. I mean, I do think that they could have they could have played that so differently, and it would have been nobody would have ever heard of anything. Maybe somebody was in a concert that knew them and whatever. But if they had just been, I mean, do you honestly remember anybody who was on the jumbotron at a concert? Probably not.
No, and it was basically the online sleuths.
Yeah, because it was the
Once
way they
this,
reacted that was
right,
the
they
issue.
identified him.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that was the funny part. It was like, what the heck? So it was the reaction, not the action that did them in, I think. Anyways, so let's talk about, first of all, the first issue is would the two, and I believe their names were Byron and Cabot, Byron was the former CEO and Cabot, the former, was it head of people or whatever it was, or curious
Yeah,
title.
I think chief people officer, which basically I think is another word to say that she was the head of human
Right.
resources.
How convenient. So the the real, I mean, do you have a claim to privacy at a sporting event or a concert or a public event? I mean, can anybody, and realistically taking this a little bit further, I mean, it's part of the show, right? When you go to the hockey, you go to the Leaf game here in Toronto, and on the TV timeouts, they spend all their time panning around, showing people on the jumbotron to keep the audience kind of engaged, while everybody else at home has to suffer through another commercial. So,
Well, and they do all kinds of audience interactions now, right?
yeah.
I mean, the last time I went to the Leafs game, they're doing putting Smurf faces on
Oh yeah,
people
yeah,
or
yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah. They're
that.
doing like filters over your face. Yeah.
Right, they're doing the
Yeah, so
filters
you're
over your
part of the
face now,
show,
right?
right? For which they
Exactly.
sell a ticket and make money.
To which I make no money being
so
part
if
of their
I'm a
show, right?
performer, let's turn this around. If I'm a performer, um, do I have a reasonable expectation? And you're making money off my performance. Do I have a reasonable expectation of having to, can I sue for royalties or I don't know.
I don't know, Quantum Meruit?
Yeah, I mean, you are making money off me. I mean, and the other part of it is,
Oh, your ticket's discounted, Gavin, at the Leaf games.
yeah, just right. Yeah. Only when I get my cat face filter on.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I do think it's an interesting question because the short answer is no. You don't. And I think that there is a whole series of reasons for that. First of all, I don't think anybody can say that they go to a public event like a hockey game or a football game or a concert with any kind of expectation of privacy.
And Gavin, certainly in the Canadian context, there's really not much of a tort of invasion of privacy, right? We've got, intrusion upon seclusion, but this would not
Yeah.
ever qualify for that kind of a
and I think
privacy
just
tort.
that it sounds like it sounds very, but if you actually break it down, intrusion upon seclusion. I mean, the name sort of says it all. There has to be seclusion.
Like a spine.
Seclusion
Yeah,
means
exactly.
I'm in a private space, right? And you're intruding into my private space. I am secluded, and you're intruded. So the And the only case I can ever recall where that tort was successfully prosecuted was a kind of bizarre case where there was a bank employee,
Right.
and who was, all these cases seem to have this like kind of sordid romantic flavor. But anyways, it was the new girlfriend or of the spout of the plaintiff's ex-husband was a bank employee, and she was snooping around in the ex-wife's bank account like hundreds of times, like watching every transaction that she made, and like seeing if she where she was buying her, what she was where she was buying stuff, and it was not, and that was intrusion on seclusion, because I mean you have a reasonable expectation that your ex-husband's new girlfriend won't be snooping around in your bank account. And that was the only instance that I don't know if I can recall it ever being successfully prosecuted in any other case. But I guess it's theoretically possible.
No, not that I'm aware of. And look, I mean, the fact of the matter in the circumstances here, where you're attending a concert or any kind of entertainment, sports entertainment, or anything that takes place in an arena, with 40 or 50,000 other people, those tickets will likely have some form of exclusion, or that you have impliedly authorized,
Expressly.
um,
Yeah.
expressly authorized. Yeah, sorry. That your face could be put on the big screen. So
Yeah, I mean, I think just breaking that down for a second, it's important, I think, for listeners to understand. Lawyers understand, but listeners understand. All that when they get it used to be in the day you get a paper ticket. Your paper ticket now is all online, which frankly
right.
probably means that there's way more fine print that can be squeezed into a web page than there could be on the back of a ticket. But the fine print is important because a ticket is a license. It is a license it is permission to attend a certain event and to use a seat for a fixed period of time while that event takes place. And there are terms of the license, and fundamentally, it's a contract. It's an agreement between two parties that these are the terms of the license by which you are agreeing to the use of this facility and this seat. And in doing so, you waive all sorts of rights. You'll see oftentimes waivers of liability, etc. I mean, I'm thinking of like the old back of like a ski ticket when you used to go skiing. There are all sorts of waivers on it, and those are not meaningless. I mean, they are the terms of the deal, whereby you are what you are paying for on your ticket.
100%. And whether you read them or not, you're stuck with them.
Right. So, I mean, the excuse that, I mean, how many times have we heard this in contract cases where, someone says, well, I'm not bound by it because I didn't read it. Well, too bad for you.
Yeah, or
You
sign it.
you
Right.
agreed to it. If you chose not to read it, that's your choice. You're still bound by it. So, barring some, remarkable circumstance, that I think you're right. There would have been a complete agreement on the part of anybody going to that event that their images might be captured and used and broadcast. And they agreed to it. So that's the end of it.
Yeah. Now, I guess what's interesting here, Gavin, and I don't know about this particular concert, whether it was shown on like some kind of live stream or rebroadcast or broadcasted over a streaming channel or
Right.
whatever. But it was certainly played within the venue. I mean, I guess that raises an interesting question with respect to people who republished the video from inside the arena to outside the arena, i.e., over the internet and to the public, and whether they've breached any privacy. I think that's been one of the comments that I've seen, right? Because it's kind of like, re-commercializing what took place inside the arena.
But
So
the
I don't
answer
know
to
if there's
that
a tort
has
there,
got to
but
be, I think, on the fundamentally the guts of the agreement, the guts of the license is that the product, you agree that your image can be captured. You agree that the rights to that image and belong to the venue or whomever is the broadcaster or whomever, and it's theirs to sell. It's their rights then, isn't it? To once you've ceded your rights, over and you've handed those rights over to a third party, it's their issue to come back and say, no, we want a royalty for every time, the Coldplay Kiss Cam video was shown.
Yeah.
Probably make more money than the tour.
Well, I'm sure people have financially benefited, with all the clicks on YouTube
for sure.
for this thing. And look, I mean, we've talked about it in the Canadian context. Certainly, there is no breach of privacy. One of the comments, though, that I have seen is that the United States has other privacy protections, and one of those is the public disclosure of private facts as being a potential tort. And I've seen some commentary that maybe there is a bit of a crack in the door for both Byron and Miss Cabot to use that tort as a potential claim for damages for breach of privacy. I don't, honestly, I don't know how that works. We're not U.S. lawyers, but there's certainly that tort that might be available to them.
I mean, I don't know anything. The tort is not something that I'm familiar with, certainly not in Canadian law, but just even going on the point, I come back to my sort of breaking down the intrusion on seclusion, public disclosure of private facts. I mean, you get to the same question to my mind. I mean, there has to be a seclusion to intrude on. And it's pretty hard to say that there was a seclusion in an arena with, 20,000 people in it. I mean, that's not a seclusion. I mean, it's not the bathroom stall. It's like, you're in the public area. So what's the private fact? There's no private fact. I mean, there's no private.
Well, exactly. That's why
you've made it a public fact
earlier. What's private if you're standing in a box, cuddling with your paramour, as you call them, right? How is that private anymore? Because there's a bunch of people around.
It. I mean, the reality of it is that that there were PDA or public displays of affection. If you choose to do it if you choose to do something in a public place, it's public. Too bad. I mean, you've made that decision as to where you are going to display that affection, and ultimately, I don't know that you got any private fact. It would seem to me you'd have a very, very. I think a court would laugh at you. And first of all, boy, talk about the masochists club. If you're going to be these they've had enough pillorying. Can you imagine if they brought a lawsuit about it? Oh my goodness.
Wasn't there a TV show once? I'm not sure if it's still on, a reality show where somebody would go around and catch cheaters.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question because that was the opposite. That was
people going out as private investigators hunting
they were
others
going to their paramour's abode, and that would arguably be private. I guess the fact that they drove there on a public street and parked their car and the time they parked and the time they left is not private. I think if they were sticking the cameras in the window and seeing what went on inside, then I think that might be different. But I think it'd be difficult to say that, where you walk on a public street or where you park your car on a public, using a public highway is private. Well, how would it be private?
I don't know. Certainly not in common law. I thought there was once a case out of Quebec where somebody took a photograph of somebody sitting on the front porch or something, and that was considered to be a breach of the person's privacy. But certainly not in common law jurisdictions. If I take a photo of you, if I take a photo of somebody who's walking drunk or on drugs on the street, down the sidewalk, I guess that's not a breach of privacy, right?
No, I don't think it is. I mean, there are cameras. Literally, we live in a society now where everything's on video. I mean, everybody's got a video on the front of their on their doorbell, and certainly government has videos all over the place. And we live in a city that is infested with speed cameras.
I've got one right here.
Yeah. Well, everybody's a cinematographer. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that would have any. I don't think that would get any traction. As far as the defamation claim goes, I mean, that would be definitely laughable. I mean, the comment by Martin was bang on the money. They were both shy and having an affair, and shy about the fact they were having an affair, apparently. So, truth is a complete defense to a defamation claim.
And I think everybody watching that would have said, "Hey, are they having an
Yeah.
affair?"
So
So that's also a fair
it would
comment.
have to be in order to be defamatory. There has to be
There was no
false.
malice.
You can't defame somebody by telling the truth. It has to be a false statement that would lower someone's reputation in the eyes of a reasonable person. So you don't get past the first clause. It's not a false statement. It was true on both counts. And as you point out, a fair opinion to draw from the objective fact of what everybody saw on the video. So yeah, strike. You are not even getting to the plate on that one, let alone to first base. So I think that the whole issue then is, what's the fallout? We know that there were terminations, and I said before, I said, parenthetically, I wanted to come back to that point because it seemed to me that okay, the rest of the world didn't know. Um, I don't know. I mean, nobody really knows if the spouses, nobody really knows what the family situation was of these two people. I mean, for all anybody knows, their spouses were aware of it. I don't know. Maybe they were. Um, but assuming they weren't, but I mean, it's certainly, as I understood matters, there was another employee of the company in the box, and I said, that would strike me as pretty weird that you talk about drawing attention to yourself. If you had a box at a large stadium, which usually holds like 20, 30 people or more, and you've got two people in it, I think people will be looking at what's going on here. I mean, like, a box ain't cheap. And so that seems to be something that, who are those two? Like, what, they've got a box. I mean, it's kind of like when you see somebody walking off of a private jet and go, who's that? I mean, it tends to actually draw attention, not the other way around.
No, for sure, and in the employment context, and we don't know. I mean, we certainly haven't seen anything. We'd be speculating, but where you've got two people in a same office environment or workplace environment having a relationship with one another, and one of them, what is he, the CEO of the company, and another person, what did the company know? Did the company investigate? Certainly in the Ontario context, it's my understanding that if there is some kind of relationship of some type between two coworkers, that there may be an obligation for the company to investigate, particularly where there seems to be a power imbalance between the two people who are involved. One being a high-level employee versus a low-level employee. Is the lower level employee being taken advantage of? You raised the issue about the box. Was it the company's box? Were they private tickets? Was somebody using the funds of the employer to pay for their sneaking away and having their tryst? At this point in time, I mean, that's potentially dishonesty in terms of using employers' money to feed your romantic liaison with somebody. I mean, we saw the mayor of Toronto resigned when he used taxpayers' money to have his young girlfriend attend trips. So
I do think that people do take this incredible pleasure in, kind of feasting on the salacious details of some other people's, yeah, particularly the downfall of people that are seen as being in positions of power or authority or success. You know, and I get it. Everybody feels that way. It's one of the, there is a natural tendency, I think, Icarus and Daedalus, to watch those. It's joyous to watch those who fly close to the sun crash to earth, but at the same time, it is not the most noble
particularly,
thing.
yeah, sure. But it's, I think, Gavin, the reason that people take pleasure in that is that if I'm the ordinary employee who was doing
Yeah.
that, I'd be kicked down the road so fast and out of the company, that in a heartbeat, I'd be
Well,
gone,
yeah. I mean,
right? And
this raises a
so
really
when
interesting question because, I mean,
you know,
this was a public company. And I don't know
yeah,
what the effect of all of this. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, and I'm not a tech character as the fact that I couldn't log on to the podcast for 15 minutes will attest. But I mean, I never heard of this company before. I mean, no one. I mean, I would just expect that other than a bunch of computer nerds, that not many people had heard of it. I don't know what their stock was doing or what their software was. I don't know anything about the company. The only thing I know about the company is that they were the Kiss Cam people. That's it. So, what did that do to the share price? The CEO has everybody talks about what is this. A CEO's job in a public company fundamentally is to increase shareholder value. And this little activity, if nothing else, was completely antithetical to that fundamental obligation.
and just on that notion, Gavin, would the company be liable, or would he be personally liable for the tanking? So let's say
Why not
let's
both?
say I sue the company, I'd third party him.
If the company had a
Right?
duty to know, if the company had a duty to prevent, if it was reasonably foreseeable, why would the company not be a proper party?
I don't know, but it might be that we will have another podcast in the future on this, depending on what kind of lawsuits come out of this.
When you start to turn stuff, everyday events around, stuff that everybody knows, you start to look at them through a legal lens. I think it is interesting to see how would the law treat a set of facts that everybody knows about, and what are the ramifications of that. And I'm always reminded of, remember when I was a kid, I used to watch The Paper Chase. And you walk through these doors and you leave thinking like a lawyer, and it'd be like exactly like that, thinking like a lawyer. Where is the claim? Where is the loss? Who is the potential plaintiff? Maybe it's the people that nobody thought about. Maybe it is the shareholders. I'm sure someone else has thought of it. In any event, Stephen, great topic, great discussion. We could probably go on and on and on and on. It's amazing.
I think this is our longest podcast ever.
Yeah, and, for an event that literally took about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. You get two lawyers together, they can stretch 15 seconds into 15 years. So as most trials will attest. And thank you for listening, and please send us your comments, feedback. We got some great feedback on the last podcast that we had. We're really grateful for that. And so please keep it coming. It's really encouraging to know people are actually listening, and great when we can interact. And if you've got ideas or thoughts for future podcasts, please send them along. We'd very much like to hear from you, Stephen.
And Gavin, just to throw it in, Byron and Miss Cabot were certainly not above the law, because
if no one is above the law, then everyone is beneath it.
100%.